Yesterday, the Deputy President was interviewed live from his current residence by Sophia Wanuna. And Sophia is here with us now. Sophia, good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Eric, lovely dude.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Well, half asleep, but good.
Well, you have a sleep.
Because it was a late night.
Yeah, but
I was
we watched
asking
it.
Brian, man.
We all watched it. Are you saying the whole country is half asleep?
No.
Because
then
the whole
after-
country watched you interviewing Rigathi Gachagua.
But after
What are
that,
you
it's not
talking
like
about?
then you guys went to sleep immediately after, right?
And what were you left doing?
Working. I mean, I was not at home.
Mm.
Yes.
You don't live in Muranga. You live in Nairobi.
Oh, please.
It's coming from Karen and going home and sleeping.
I think when I have late
You don't
nights
live in Muranga. Wow.
at in Moranga, right? Anyway, but Niko Salama,
Good to see you.
good to see you too.
Hmm.
Yes.
Very interesting conversation you had there with the Deputy President.
Was it?
Yes, in many ways. And he answered very many questions. In many ways, he was answering some were his own questions, but yeah, he answered many questions as well. Just segueing from this conversation you're having,
Yeah.
you asked him about the strength of Kenya Kwanza versus Azimio la Umoja One Kenya
Yeah.
in the House. And of course, the same script that we're seeing even on social media was repeated. Azimio is a political party, it's not a coalition. Kenya Kwanza is a coalition. But either way, anyway, we have numbers, and there are people who have crossed over to us because they are initially being arm twisted to say that they're on the other side, blah, 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 blah. Ndu is asking, we have a parliament that should be playing a role of oversight, legislation, representation.
Yeah.
Not playing the role of barking, when the president asks them to bark. Did you feel the Deputy President speaking to this issue that the Parliament should be independent anyway?
I think when you talk about politics, and to the example I heard you also speak about the US example, right? You see, Parliament is government. You have three arms of government. You have the executive, the Parliament, and then you have the judiciary.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, there's no, you can't not extricate yourself from that situation. Even when members, I remember Raila was telling the Azimio PG that you cannot be invited to be in government or being swayed or some carrot dangled. You're already in government by virtue of being an MP or a senator. So that's one. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, it shouldn't be either or, that either work with government or go oppose government.
Right.
I mean, that's who do you help with that, right? It's about for president and the executive. Of course, they came together, worked with these members to gain power, get into office. They are now president, deputy president, and they have this coalition. A lot of what they must do, in fact, you look at their manifesto, relies on a legislative agenda that these folks will push.
Yep.
And that's why it was so important that Ruto skipped the induction of governors in Mombasa for this
To
PG.
spend time with his...
Exactly. For 2 days and sat down a whole day, 8 hours with these folks that brought in, whether it's from the health sector, economy, to take members through. He even was joking at the end of the day. I'm sorry, some of you thought will come enjoyment,
time. Yes.
but imekuwa kama CBC. But it was important that they read from the same script from the get-go, that this is what they promised, and he realizes and knows he cannot do it without these members. And so these members need to understand, so they're just on the same page. So for me, it's not an either or, that if there's opposition, because in our context, it's majority and minority, right? So the idea is that at the end of the day, how all should approach this is for the good of Wanjiko,
Yada, yada, yada.
right?
But do you think that is what the president was actually telling them? That, you know what, we just want you to understand where we are coming from at the executive. When you come to Parliament, we are ready for you to challenge us. Do you think the president was actually looking at any of those members and saying, if so-and-so, for example, just says, I am not voting on this because I don't agree with a certain clause that has not been amended, the president would be like, it's okay, man. I understand where you're coming from. I took you to Naivasha for the... It's okay.
I see you.
Do you think that's what he had in mind?
No, the thing is, there's the reality of politics. And we also cannot bury our heads in the sand and imagine there's just always this pragmatism that always prevails. When you want something, you push for it. There are those who will not agree with you, there are those who will. And I think what I will say from the get-go that he made very clear is that he wants an opposition, which the deputy president repeated yesterday, to hold them to account. And even during the speech at the inauguration, we want let people criticize us. So for me, that is at least a good thing to the extent of it opens up that space for those who will stand true to whether they were elected and, serve their people as they were, or those who will go and decide government, the person who does whatever I'm called upon to do. So,
see, when the president used the word opposition,
right,
that is where the red flag is for me. If the president said, I would like a parliament that oversights the work that I do, I would be seeing a completely different story from when he says, I would like an opposition. They are in the opposition. I would like an opposition that checks me. When all the same time he says, I have the majority.
So it doesn't really matter what it is.
He
like,
is basically saying, you guys can be talking all you talk.
But I have the numbers.
Ongeeni, mko na uhuru wa kuongea, but you see, I have the numbers, so I'll always carry the day. And when he goes and meets with his members in Naivasha, he's basically telling them, guys, we are here, we have the numbers, we shall be carrying the day.
This is our agenda.
So we shall push through no matter what.
Yes.
Valid point. And that's the thing, that at the end of the day, you also have to remember, for a politician of the stature of William Ruto and what we have come to see, and for many, whether surprised, whatever, is whatever happens between now and the next 5 years, it's not lost on him that he can do bullish sort of things and get away with it. Because at the very least, Kenyans have showed if there's certain things they don't agree with you, they will show you the door, or they will just not, So he will have to temper that it is true. He can get away with his very nice, smooth talking to the politicians, get them along to do whatever. But if all of that doesn't all go well for Wanjiku, if it's not serving the people and fulfilling what they promise, it will come back to bite him.
Look, this is the thing that we hear. There's a lot of concessionary talk that is going on on the sides that be the would-be opposition.
Yeah.
Wherever you want to look at it. Like, okay, look, ours may not necessarily be to just keep the executive in check or to just oversight. At the end of the day, what we are doing is we're putting representation above all of this. Representation means that if it is good for the people of the country, then this is what we are really going for. And if it just so happens that whatever the executive and his people are saying, and if it is good for Wanjiku, as you say, then we are going to go ahead with it. So it almost seems to me as though certain tools have already been put down. That there's the understanding that, look, at the end of the day, is it going to help the people of Kenya? Then maybe we're not necessarily going to poke holes as the opposition, or coming from the minority stand, that we're going to be all right with it. If at the end of the day, if it is good for the people that I as a leader represent, and the people who elected me to this spot, then I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily just going to oppose for the sake of opposition, but I'm just going to go with it because, you know what? At the end of the day, it's much easier.
This is good policy. Or this is good law.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah. Politics of ideology as opposed to special purpose vehicle that our political parties have so commonly been known for. But what's interesting is what you're seeing play out in the National Assembly with the leadership positions. There's a sense that when you cross over to the Senate, they almost are hoping, the ODM members, that the argument being canvassed and pushed by Kenya Kwanza, to the extent that Azimio is a coalition party, it only had one candidate, president, and all these others were, right? So to the extent of majority, it's obvious because UDA as a party alongside coalition of parties has more members. However, this was what I found interesting. You saw Raila Odinga when speaking to the members of Azimio saying, you know what, we are a coalition of parties. We need to even give positions to the smaller parties because that's how you build consensus and stick together. However, within ODM, they're very upset because you see over in Senate, Wiper, I think, has a whip,
Deputy leader is a Wiper and whip is Wiper. And so it's ODM Wiper. Jubilee gets one.
And they're not happy about that. So they're,
Who's not happy? ODM.
yes, we will not say it out loud because then they don't want
But they
to appear.
have the leadership in both.
They want everything because they believe they earned it. And so if this argument by KK stands and is upheld in the National Assembly, then they will pretty much be saying, those with the numbers carry the day. So
then
ODM
the
has
ODM
the
is
numbers.
then the second majority.
Yes, and then they'll
So
say
it should form the leadership of all.
the Senate.
Makes sense. Even in the National Assembly.
Well, National Assembly, they're being...
Well, are they not the third largest? After, if you look at UDA,
Yes,
the
yes.
second largest
Yes,
was
they are.
ODM.
They are.
So if Speaker Wetangula says, I recognize this one as coalition, Kenya Kwanza. I recognize this one as party, and
Why
this
are you
party is
saying
not.
it like that?
Is it up
I'm
to
just
him
saying.
to recognize?
And
Is it
I
up to
see
him to
Azimio as a
recognize?
party has no member in this house. The only party that has a member in this house that is not in the Kenya Kwanza coalition is ODM, that has the second.
Good point she
largest.
makes. Is it him to recognize?
him to-
The Constitution is clear about majority and minority. So for him, it's because there's they've both come and said, our majorities are this and this. Of course, you
Yes.
can't have two majorities.
The
So
Speaker
it's
has
that
to.
interpretation of, from my understanding, from law, what I have, the documents is gotten from the
Registrar
registrar
of political parties.
parties.
Absolutely.
This is the position.
Yeah. It's, to me, it's you can't just cook it up in your head in terms
Yeah.
of what you want.
It
on
will
that
move
day.
to court, yeah.
It is
going
not,
to
it's
have
not
to
what he
come
wants.
from
He
something.
has to make a ruling as a speaker.
Yeah.
And say, from the foregoing, he'll do the whole thing. Wetangula has not actually done this kind of thing in a while. So he'll enjoy, I'm sure, standing there and communication from the chair and reading for us for 15 minutes or so, or more, 45. And then come to, in conclusion, therefore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this house, the majority comprises this. The minority is this. Now, ODM then can now come up say, if we are the minority, we take all the leadership positions. How did the Kenya Kwanza share out the positions? If I look at Kimani Ichung'wah, UDA, Silvana Sosoro, UDA, Naomi Wako, UDA, right? This is leader, chief whip, and deputy chief whip in the National Assembly. Aaron Cheruiyot, leader in the Senate.
UDA.
Deputy whip Tabitha Karanja. Chief whip Boni Khalwale. Stephen Lelegwe, deputy chief whip. So UDA has taken everything.
And that's in line with the argument they're, putting out there
Yeah.
that it's a UDA.
Well, yes, but then UDA can also come and argue, as Kenya Kwanza, we have the speaker. We sponsored a speaker together who is not a UDA member in the Senate and in the National Assembly.
Yep. But to the extent of the bigger party with the numbers, UDA.
My goodness. This is going to be an interesting one to play out.
It will.
When you were having a conversation with the deputy president last night, he went with that argument. I mean, we are a coalition. We are registered as a coalition. These guys are a party. They're registered as a party.
Yeah. And they have no single member. So, yeah.
It still does. I mean, to me, it looks like there's a numbers game being played out here. There is then also who will take the day, because you register your might on both houses. You register your might in terms of that. And then that means when it comes to decisions that you make moving forward legislatively, then obviously means that you carry the day.
Yeah.
But then the question is, do you really see a situation, a speaker who is making the decision, coming obviously with allegiance to one house, making a decision that will go in favor of the other side, regardless of these numbers that we're talking about?
Kwanza, his first order of business
Let's be realistic.
to say thank you to Kenya Kwanza for
Come
electing him is ruling against them.
And then going and telling them, okay, actually, you know what? According to the registrar of political parties,
Yeah.
I actually see that Azimio is in the majority, so we have no choice but to give it to them.
But I think you have to
Come
remember,
on.
guys,
Yep.
at the end of the day, this whole thing about majority, minority, politically speaking, Kenya Kwanza has the numbers, right? Those who are officially in Azimio, signed, pack, whatever, have moved. It's in the public domain.
Yeah.
So even if, fine, let's say there's this speaker and comes and says, unaligned, impartial. Azimio has the numbers as to the paperwork I have from the registrar. However,
It'll always be a
in 3
majority of a
months-
minority.
No, in 3 months, then they can officially exit, and then it flips. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Either way.
either
It
way.
could actually be a very good thing for Moses Wetangula
Yeah.
if he rules in favor of Azimio.
Azimio, exactly.
Because
Because
then
he
it
earns
endears
the-
him
yes,
to the whole house.
Yes.
And he can say, you guys are the majority. It's okay.
Take it. Because we know.
Opio and I will be the majority leader. But will you ever get anything, even in committees,
Zero.
going your way?
Yeah. And that's the thing, you've put it very well, because that's he has to really just come, at least at the beginning, to appear to be not a man who, because these are the folks that helped me get here, that now everything that comes, I only see it through one lens.
Let's take a break at this point. Kenya's biggest conversation at 1:30. Sophia Wanuna is the boss at KTN News. Last night, she was interviewing the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. First live interview by the Deputy President by Mr. Rigathi Gachagua since he became His Excellency Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And very many things that he said, and we want to just look at some of those things. Sophia's main takeaways from that interview.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Eric Latif, Nduoko, and Sophia Wanuna looking back into last night's interview with Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Sophia, there's a question you asked him about the constitution of government, and I felt that he just dug himself into a rabbit hole when he talked about how the government is going to be divided. When he said that Mount Kenya people, as a leader of Mount Kenya, I want to assure the people that we are going to get the number of seats in this government commensurate with the strength of our votes. And when he said their vote is almost 50%, below 50%, but they're going to get
43,
something
47,
that's commensurate
50.
with 43%. I was like, okay. And he gave the examples. Kimani Ichung'wah, leader of majority in the National Assembly, gave the example of the support given to Governor Anne Waiguru. The Deputy President is from Mount Kenya. And then he went on, and I was like, okay, what are you saying? What are you saying?
And he said government is big.
Yes.
It's going to happen.
So what should we expect from North? So the North Rift is going to get 56% or 50% thereabout of government?
Yeah.
Is that going to have an issue with the issue of the face of Kenya and all?
Yeah. And that's why, even after he said that, I asked, what about those who didn't vote for you?
Yes.
Because, there are people watching and they're hearing you talking about, for the votes you brought, you shall be rewarded adequately.
Yeah.
And then they're like, huh? We didn't vote. Yeah, what does that mean for us? So, and it was the interesting balancing act, which they must do, because even for the president, because at the time, for all intents and purposes, it was more of a co-presidency. This bromance went into cabinet, like sharing half at the beginning.
Yeah.
And he, brought a lot of people from his side. He cannot do that in this one. And even for the deputy president, they truly have to live up to the face of the nation. And if they don't, they will be called out for it. I mean, we're here waiting to see. Everyone is watching. And he was very clear about defending it, which, he had a good point, the political class, because already, even with all the conversations around the potential CSs, you can already see Kenyans talking about, I hope you're not going to now get an MP elected, pluck them from there, take them to cabinet, and we have several by-elections, or so-and-so who was there before, whatever. So this is one big one to watch. And that is why they're clear about we're not going to rush it, because it's not one of those you can do and then send a statement to clarify. You have to get it right.
From the beginning.
Yes.
I see a tricky one here. Roles have been reversed in the 2013,
Yes.
William Ruto was deputy president. He was eyeing the presidency in future and
Right.
looking at how to go with his support base. This time, Rigathi Gachagua is in that position where William Ruto was, and that's why he is looking at solidifying his position as the
Mount
Mount
Kenya.
Kenya kingpin.
Correct.
And that's why you're saying, as your leader, I've assured that we are getting. William Ruto this time has to play the national game, and he has to do
Correct.
what Kenyatta had to do in 2013. Okay, you guy, you've got it. How many are you bringing? Okay, now me, I have to look at the whole country and see how to divide it.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one, this one, for Ruto.
It is. However, for purposes of 2027, he will, to an extent, want to still ensure Mount Kenya is
Happy.
not displeased, happy, is comfortable. So you want to play the national game, but remember there was a huge support that got you to power that you want to still bank on going into 27. So while else it will not be as we saw it play out in 2013, but it will be, you rightfully said it, yeah, the game has changed. For Rigathi Gachagua, which you were saying, he's the leader, and I put to him, but really, who brought the vote? Was it
Is it
you
you or
or
was
the
it Ruto?
president? Because he's a president who has, been endearing himself over time and has that support. And then now Rigathi Gachagua in this period will be looking as a deputy president going forward, harboring perhaps presidential ambition as well, to then cement himself as the what we call kingpin.
Yep.
It will be very interesting times ahead, politically speaking.
Indeed, I think there's a lot of power play. There's a lot of power, moves at play here.
Yeah.
Even as subtle as they may be, but that is clear that in as much as we're talking about a collective, inclusive, working for the people government, there is still that individual, desire to be cemented, as you say, in one place, because the future is always in the horizon.
Yeah.
The next 5 years is always right there for everybody. Like, what are we going to do? And to say that people are only working in the here and now, I think would be myopic because everybody's already looking forward in terms of what are we going to be able to do later.
Right.
What am I going to do today? And we saw this at the campaign. What am I going to do today that's going to cement my position as president, as deputy president? And then now that here you are, what am I going to do? What decisions am I going to make today that will then cement my position in the next course of things? So in as much as we're saying, okay, right, I'm going to I'm going to appoint Sophia as my CS for this, I'm going to appoint Eric as my CS for this.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily doing it so that the wheels of development can continue turning in Kenya properly. In as much as that might be a consequence of my action, I think over
There's
and above of
another
that, there is another
Play.
play here, and it's the long game that's
Yeah.
being okay.
Yeah.
What am I going to be able to do to make sure that that is the case? And am I ready to bulldoze, or rather, am I clearing the way? And whether it is individuals, whether it is coalitions, whether it is parties that are in the way of me getting there, I have no problem removing them, subtly or otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think we cannot run away from that. Part of me really believes that President Ruto wants to get work done. And he wants to get things done. That he's beholden to his promise that he made to people at whatever level. However he's going to do that, he will do it. But at the same time, he's also cementing a position for the future.
So he's got to balance the two.
He has to balance the two, but one of them, and the one that is right here as opposed to the one that's in the fore vision, is getting things working. And getting them working now.
Yeah.
Because you can talk about the future, but there's these very same people for whom you need to get an economy running.
Yeah.
For whom you need to get food on the table, for whom you need to have their children in school where they are comfortable. It is them who are going to make sure that, because at the end of the day, it's them you went to.
Exactly.
Right? So I think he holds those two positions where, all right, okay, I've got these 5 years within which I have to do this, but at the same time, do I want longevity in my reign? And that also has to happen.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, he's a workaholic. The discipline to focus and really go at it is what he has working for him. So as to what he does with that energy, vibrancy, and the capacity to really just focus. And if you remember even during the campaigns, all manner of stops in one day. Even the final one, when you usually have the final grand one rally. He had the grand one, then still went to others.
Yeah.
So he has his work cut out for him, the deputy president as well. And it's really going to be, as you said, that to deliver, because the beauty is, and they've opened that door and publicly said it, of course, even if they didn't, it would still happen, open to criticism. That whatever you do, we will either call you out for it or we will ask,
We'll hold you
said
accountable
this.
for everything.
Yeah?
We'll hold you accountable for
For
everything.
everything.
There's a
As
nice,
it should be.
a nice narrative that is rolling out after the deputy president was declared president-elect, and then he was sworn in to become president. He's a workaholic. He works very hard. It has caught on very nicely. And I think those who, because I strongly feel that it was actually well choreographed to come out into the public. Now it's landed. Every time you're thinking of Ruto, you're thinking, this guy works hard, man.
It's called conditioning.
Yeah,
The thing that has happened to you is called conditioning.
This guy
But
works
is it
hard.
conditioning? Do you say
Because
to the
this-
extent
Eric
of
has been
it's
conditioned.
being,
This
being
narrative-
scripted, or is it true?
it
Are
true?
you
It is-
questioning the?
It has been scripted to come out as true.
As
It
true.
could be a representation of the truth.
Yes.
Right.
But it has been scripted to come out now to take center stage. If you think about William Ruto as deputy president, William Ruto during the Tanga Tanga campaigns and all, there was no issue of he's a workaholic. Until after his victory was actually declared, that's when, but you see, this guy works hard. This guy is organized. This guy. And now that's top and center of everything about William Ruto. It's working very well for him because it's sort of like calming people down and people feeling, okay,
With all these problems,
whatever
he
he
will
tells
figure
me,
it out.
yeah, whatever he tells me, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt that he's a workaholic. He's waking up very early in the morning. He's keeping his ADC busy and on all those things. So he's gonna get it done. Perfect. I believe it is scripted. I believe it started somewhere.
And the
It
fellas
has
are
spread-
geniuses, aren't they?
It has spread
But the
very
thing is,
well,
I hear-
and it is working very well.
I hear you, Eric, and I think on such things, it's you can script hard work. Bottom line, it's about it being seen. So, whereas they're riding on it, but I don't think it is far from the reality, because you look at he has run
I
for
don't think so.
president first time.
Yeah.
Here he is. To the extent that, because that was important, to have a conversation with legislators around what you intend to do.
Yeah.
So I had to come and tell them, guys, we're here.
Yeah.
We
gonna do
promised this. A lot of what we promised relies on you guys doing this, because
Yeah.
otherwise guys would come in, oh, we're MPs, we're senators,
Yeah.
and moving on. However, it is, so you can see in terms of, so I would not at this point take that away from him. We'll keep, of course, assessing, but so far, to the extent of, campaign, the organization of it, getting where he has, these parties. At the beginning, you remember when he talked about, we don't need to form a coalition or work with anybody to get elected. But however, they managed to work together. Here we are today.
Yep.
So to purely say this is just a narrative,
No, I'm not saying purely it's a narrative. It's not like they're spinning
exactly.
untruths.
Yeah.
What they have done, and this is very good for communication and branding,
Yeah.
is you've taken this good attribute, you've made sure that you highlight it, you mainstream it, and it works well for you because then you're able to get people's confidence.
Yes.
All right. So they are basically, it's true, William Ruto works hard even before the campaigns. Those who have interacted with people who have worked closely with him, we know he works very hard. But never has it been said the way it's being said now.
Now, yeah.
Like, this guy, he works really hard. This guy. So, what you're basically being told is trust him.
Yeah.
He's got your back.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Things are tough, but right now he's working.
He's working.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. True.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Many things also that the deputy president told you yesterday. What stood out for you mostly out of
That's a difficult
how long was
one.
it? Was it 1.5 hours?
1.5. Oh gosh. I mean,
Apart from
also
him
it's-
telling you that you were unfair to him during the presidential debate.
Yeah, but then he was like, yeah, but integrity issues are important. However, because see, at the time, his issue was we should have talked about the issues. And even after the debate, we spoke, and
Yeah.
he really was like, you guys were very unfair. You went on and on and on, but
But he's the
Kenyans
one.
want the issues. But sat back and I'm like, I hear you. Granted, perhaps would have had more time for the economy and all of these things. However, these are not non-issues. In fact, if, Eric, you're going to employ someone to your house to work as this and this, the children, food, everything, you want to first ensure that this is a person that whatever resources, whatever shopping you're bringing into the house, everything is taken
Well
care
managed,
of.
yeah.
So that it is not enough for you. You can be brilliant with ideas of how we can do things, but who are you?
It's
That
background
then
check.
come exactly, and
You can
that's
cook well for my children.
Yeah.
Fine. You went to
But you could be
whatever.
a
You
psychopath.
yeah, but
exactly. So, yeah.
and also I think because you'll get that from Rigathi Gachagua, you may also get that from the president. They took that tangent themselves. You're not the one who asked what is state capture. He started the conversation on state capture.
Exactly.
So if you've brought state capture here and you've talked about
We can't now run away and be like, "Woo!"
Well, now
Let's
that you've
talk
brought
issues.
it in, now that you've brought it in, how
You
about
know,
we have a conversation about
exactly.
it?
and you're the one who's come and said the real candidate in this election is not Raila, it is Uhuru.
With a whole
All
more
right,
Kenya
with
to
an
go.
entire more Kenya to go with it. You brought it. You can't then say that I didn't ask you about the agenda on education.
Correct.
You didn't give me the time. You
Yeah.
took off. I asked you the question. You answered your own. It's one of those.
It's one of those because the thing we were told about debates and any interview anyway, it has to also have that organic
Yes.
sense to it. Because imagine he brings out a Makonya, I'm like, no,
may
stop.
not use
We now
that.
want to talk about transport. You can't. You still have to flow with it, even when you have a different plan.
Yeah.
Until But hey, I honestly don't know if I have an answer to that question. I still need to. I've not fully even internalized it all.
There were very
At
many
some
things.
point, there were so many
Very
things.
many things that were discussed.
But what
The
was
issue of-
interesting
yes.
is police officers reaching out.
Yes.
I mean, I found that, and you see, for them is to say, I think where they're at that point, 3 of them, and saying,
Who wrote
this-
in to you?
Yeah, and called. So that was like, wow, okay.
What are the questions that the police wanted you to ask the deputy president?
So it was the one of the expressway that,
We have very many police officers who've been seconded to the Moja
yes,
expressway.
the exits and entries, and they're there throughout. Apparently, when they, like for SGR, when they're there, there's an allowance given, lunch, whatever. This one's 0. Okay? But the other thing that, of course, the uniform was
Yep.
another issue. But the need to reshuffle the heads, those that have been in certain
Senior positions. of the
senior
police
positions service for a long time, because then now they've become like whole, So those are some of their concerns, and they're saying, we work, we love our jobs, but at the end of the day, you have people where it's like catalysm. They're there, they've done things a certain way for a long time, and they can get away with it. So with this fresh and new team in office, can we jig things up, rejig even at the level of the management of the police service?
What was his answer?
He said they will engage, is the overall. I mean, he said a lot. But overall, what he was saying is these issues, they're well versed with them. They know there have been numerous issues. And he kept referencing to his days as DO that I've been in uniform. I know all of these issues. And for 10 years, the police officers have been neglected. So we will have, as we have seen the president engage at the sectors, we will have that conversation so that we can come with the best way forward.
Okay.
But the uniform might go because of that, that PCA.
Yeah, that's an issue. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Do you think, just looking as though, some of the things he says about being in charge, do you think that he would be readily acceptable of, the question has always been, so what exactly does a deputy do? What do the deputy governors do? One of the big issues for President William Ruto when he was deputy president was, well, you know what?
If
What
my
you
boss,
do?
if my boss hasn't sent me,
Yeah,
where to go.
I am here.
What am I doing? I'm just here, when you're ready for me,
I'll
here.
come out. Yeah.
So does he have a
expectation
of what he will be doing in government, or is he just waiting for direction from the president?
That's a really good question because you saw it informed the campaigns to the extent of the candidates, the presidential candidates, saying that for Raila it was Martha will also double up as minister
The slayer of the dragon of corruption.
of
Right,
corruption,
and justice
right?
and constitutional affairs.
Right.
Yes.
And even at the time, the president now was unveiling Rigathi as his running mate at the time, spoke to these enhanced roles and clear ones. So, for sure, as much as even yesterday when I told him, oh, you're in charge now, he's like, no, I'm still not in charge. The president, I'm here, but we are in consulting. So you want to always be like, you're second in command, always very clear in your mind, in your pronounce, everything you say, that there's the boss.
Yep.
I am who I am. However, he is a politician and he's thinking, as we were saying, you're working, but there's this other game at play. So what's going to be interesting to see now is, especially outside of, because that's not just the president, the deputy president, is now you have this chief minister. Right? Who also is coming with, there's a docket, but also some supervisory roles.
Yeah.
Because ideally, what Matiang'i was for Uhuru is what Ruto should have been for Uhuru.
Yeah.
The reason there was a Matiang'i chief minister is because of this fallout within.
Yes.
Yeah. So you create this and you take us back to, was it Kibaki administration, where then you have all of this and people fighting for space. The vice president, wants this. The
And
prime minister is here. So this will be interesting to see how it's managed. Because
That's
even
true.
you saw Kenyans on Twitter, I think, talking about, okay, so where will he be seated?
What's
Will
his
it-
office going to be?
Yeah. Will it be at Annex? Will it be, and at a Harambe House second? So we'll wait to see. But it's definitely one that Rigathi Gachagua, the deputy president, is not a pushover.
That's what, yeah.
You remember even just getting him
As
to that
as the running
as
mate.
the running mate, that his colleagues, there was this whole contestation.
Yep.
Kindiki is the person. But it is said, and we've heard this from credible sources, that he also put his foot down.
Yep.
He said, "This is what I'm
It's
bringing
me.
to the table.
Yeah,
It is
this is
me
what I bring."
or."
Now here you are, you have been elected, you've marshaled votes for this ticket, and then there's this other guy, all he's coming through is because he got promised something. You expect that Rigathi Gachagua will sit there and say, all right, so the chief minister has the role of coordination of government, takes over an entire building called Annex, and then I just take some office on some second floor of
But that's not
Harambe
that.
House.
Annex is the deputy
Aye,
president's office.
you
That's
know.
first.
That would be
Is
deserved for
that
him.
would not happen.
You know?
But you remember that photo that speaks to what you're saying from Naivasha
Yeah.
on the red carpet.
Yeah,
You have the
who's
president
on the red carpet?
and Mudavadi is on
He's
the red carpet
carpet.
and on the grass.
Gachagua is jostling for space. Don't step on grass. There is the deputy
is the
president on the grass. It's going to be an interesting on that one, on how even the president himself balances it out.
Correct.
Because he understands the value. And from what we've seen, Moses Wetangula, we promised, all right, here you go.
And he
Kingi-
delivered. You have to
Kingi,
give it to him.
We promised, here you go.
Yeah.
Musalia Mudavadi, we promised, here you go. Here is the deputy president. We work together. So how do you feel that you have sufficient power and authority over and above these others? Interesting days ahead.
Indeed.
Very.
Interesting days
And
ahead.
we are all here for it.
Of course. Waiting for the
sure.
unveiling of the cabinet when the president
Yeah.
comes back. Waiting for now to see the House take over leadership and all, and they start working. All of this. Sophia, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. And why is CT? Because I feel I'm seated. See,
CT,
the great CT.
CT is chilling, relaxing, supervising the.
He's a chief minister.
Yes.
He's now Charles.
Ooh.
Yeah. You see, he's
Okay.
King Charles the
Okay.
Third.
All right.
And so during this period, he of course had to take some time.
Okay.
But he'll be back